Okay, I now have 7:06. I see that we have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. And the very first order of business is I would like to welcome Sarah Warden, the Community Preservation Committee. Sarah, thank you so much for volunteering and coming in to join us.
Sorry, I couldn't be there in person. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, understood. I'll tell you what, having the hybrid format here just makes it so much easier to get a quorum together. So it's fantastic.
Okay.
Good evening, Ellen. I didn't see you until just now.
Hi, everybody.
Alan.
Hi.
You'll have to take a because you'll have to do a roll call.
Yeah, because we have remote members. All votes will be done by roll call. So let's see. Okay, so we have a member or two with some time constraints here. We're going to be trying to get through this prior to 8 o'clock. So I'm going to try to move things along fairly quickly. First order of business on the agenda is a review of the Community Preservation Committee bylaw. We're reviewing it with an eye to perhaps amending it by citizens petition warrant article for the upcoming fall special town meeting. Lisa has done a bunch of work on this and put together a PowerPoint presentation that summarizes the whole thing very nicely. So I would like to turn it over to you, Lisa.
Awesome. Betsy, can you make Grant the host? Grant's going to ask you to put the PowerPoint presentation up. Did you get it, Grant?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
So
perfect. Thank you.
I just raised my hand. Oh, thanks.
Gotcha.
Could you also,
Yeah.
oh, thanks.
Who's for co-host? Yes, it doesn't matter.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'll start by just saying that this should be a relatively some level of quick overview conversation. We've all talked about this before, so it should be nothing new. So this is just a citizen's petition correcting the appointing authority for Community Preservation Committee members. Next screen, Grant. Thank you.
You seen that online?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
right
should
there.
be-
No,
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, no,
Oh, I'm just saying you can see your back.
yeah.
Oh, look at it here. So this next one is just what we all know is currently the appointing legislation from the enabling legislation of the CPA, and it talks about how the members are appointed, how certain specific committees are designated versus appointed by the appointing board. I guess it doesn't make any sense, but I'll just say it's the enabling legislation of CPC and how members are to be appointed. Next screen. So out of the 196 towns, cities and towns that have enacted the CPA, 179 or 91.3% follow the chapter 44B language as written, with members being designated by the commission, boards, or committees they represent and not appointed by town leadership. That leaves only 17 that require town or city leadership appointment for the designees who are representatives of board committees and commissions. Of those 17, only 2 were created after 2006. The commonality being that 15 were created in towns that were early adopters of CPA or at the beginning, which, like Southborough, adopted the CPA in 2003 at town election by ballot. Surrounding towns of Westboro, Hopkinton, Northborough, Ashland, and Sudbury all follow the MGL Chapter 44B language and only require the select board to appoint the at-large members. There's been much contention regarding the recent select board's refusal to appoint the designated representatives of the Recreation Commission and SHOPC, as well as holding the appointment of Conservation Commission and Planning Board member for a select board interview. Historically, in the 20 years of CPA in Southborough, the boards and committees and commission representatives have been appointed by the select board on the consent agenda as a formality, and only the at-large seats have been by interview. Next slide. And these are the 17 towns that have select board or town manager, town administrator appointment. The only one that's a little different on here is Boxborough. The planning board members, which is number 2. The select board only appoints 8 of the 9 because planning board is an automatic because they're an elected official. And it shows the year that they were enacted. And you'll see again, all of them were towards the beginning of CPC. So the next slide shows the proposed changes. Under current, it shows what the current bylaw reads, and I highlighted the sentence that we'd like to strike. And under the new, what we would like to insert. The composition of the committee, the appointment authority, and the term of office for the committee members shall be as follows. That is the consistent language with the 176 or I can't remember now what the number was,
179.
179, yes.
And the enabling legislation,
I'm sorry.
the enabling.
Well, yeah, and that ties in with the enabling legislation as well, but that's what the current cities and towns use. And the next slide is just, the only change we're making on this is we're adding designated by a majority vote of the committees and commissions. That was at a request of Mrs. Fanuc, which makes sense. It's not really changing the bylaw. It's just giving a little more clarity as well. The next screen is just CPC needs to decide if they're interested in sponsoring a citizen's petition to review and approve the language and changes to current bylaw, draft a warrant article, get the required signatures, submit it to the clerk and the select board, get support and started outreach and education, including a fact sheet, which Ellen, we know you are fabulous at that. We would hope that you would want to work on that. And then just prepare a brief presentation, you know, taking some of the things that we already have into it. And then the last page is just towns that have enacted it. So my ask of CPC tonight is there an interest in bringing forth the citizens petition to town meeting to make us more in line with what the other towns do? And again, if you think about it, since 2006, there's been 2 towns that actually have select board appoint everybody. So I think just with how things have gone lately and the intention and the spirit of the CPA, I would hope that this committee would have an interest in correcting that language in our own bylaw. So I'll turn it back to you then.
Thank you, Lisa. And I would only point out, and it's been said before by myself and others, that the plain black letter language of our town bylaw clearly says that the select board shall appoint members as designated, but apparently there's some tiny little corner that town council can get his fingernail under to argue against that. So I think this change is necessary to honor the intent of town meeting 2003 and then the subsequent election in 2003 to adopt CPA, and also to keep us just in accordance with 44B. So I'm very much in favor of it. I hope everybody else is as well.
Yeah, just from a functional point of view, right? Sometimes we have trouble making quorum, so anything that smooths the process to make sure we are a full committee is good with me.
Yeah, I think it makes sense as well. I know that we talked about it at our last meeting, and it is a product of our times, I think. Yeah, we have lost essentially 2 potential members from this scenario happening. And who knows, if we don't fix it, we potentially lose more down the road. So I think it's an important fix.
I guess one last piece of it is, you know, the very intent of 44B, the Community Preservation Act, is to set up a separate independent funding mechanism in municipalities to fund these special projects that typically get sort of elbowed off the table during the normal budgeting process. And that independence is a critical part of how the Community Preservation Act works. And this preserves that.
And I think for any PowerPoint we do, that is something that needs to be included for town meeting. I think town meeting needs to understand that this isn't just a slush fund for maintenance or things that should have been done out of the normal town budget that weren't. I mean, I think we need to show some of the great things that have happened with CPC. In front of you had a great list that you shared with us. I think it was at the last meeting or the meeting before of some of the things, excuse me, through CPC, you know, the Chestnut Hill Farm. I think there's a ton of things like that we should include as well, so people understand when we say not your typical general fund budget items, that, you know, these are things that normally wouldn't get funded through the town budgets.
Lisa, I just have a couple questions if you don't mind. So for this slide here, I have it up on the screen.
Yes.
The new language, does that match exactly Mass General Law, or is there any deviation from that?
It's so Mass General Law, if you go up, just lost it. If you go up, Grant, to the second slide, that's actual Mass General Law, what it says.
This one. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, so that is mirrored in the next page, where it talks about one member of such and such designated by. The only thing that was added that other towns don't have is that we initially added that the committee shall be appointed by the select and shall consist. The other towns, like I said, it's very common that this is the language, the composition of the committee, the appointment authority, and the term shall be as follows.
Okay.
That is standard language within probably 98% of the other towns.
Okay, that's helpful, thanks.
It is the best practice within the Commonwealth now.
Yes, it is.
Common understand.
Yeah, and you know, what we did, and again, it was at the beginning of CPC, and the intent was, I think. Go ahead, Fred. Sorry.
Okay,
Please.
so I actually wrote the bylaw, and at the time, it was with advice from the select board. So I'm not sure if there were other people, it was a long time ago, but, you know, I had been the president of the Southborough Ballot Question Committee for Community Preservation Act, something like that. We did the ballot. It was a small group, me, Latrell, myself, Lori Ford, and then Jerry, it was last name. And so after it got passed, we had to wait to the next town meeting to write the bylaw. And we did this with advice and, you know, collaboration, and we put that language in. I did ask Stuart, you asked me to ask him if the CPC could be the sponsor of this, and he said, sure. But when these problems first came up, he asked me, he goes, why would you have put that in there? And it wasn't required. It's not in line with Mass General Law. And I said, because we were being collaborative and cooperative with the select board, putting a warrant article together at the time, and never envisioned what's gone on. And I don't think any other town has had this situation. I don't know. Stuart wasn't aware of it when I asked. So.
And another question, if you don't mind. So I know, well, at least I think that the select board is interested in putting forward their own article on Affordable Housing Trust Fund and ShopC, which I know has been kicking around for a while.
Yeah.
I to be honest, I haven't seen the draft warrant. I think there is one right for the town meeting, so I don't know if
it's nothing in there other than a placeholder.
okay. But so do we know about the mechanics at all? If because that would also change the CP. The CP, you know, the bylaw as well, to change it from ShopC to Affordable Housing Trust Fund or something. So what happens if we change the same law twice in one town meeting? Is that okay, or do we know the answer to that? Because like if we say here, we change the bylaw to be that it's Southborough Opportunity Housing Partnership,
That's
and
currently in the
then
bylaw.
they change it to be Affordable Housing Trust because they get rid of.
That's separate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with the
I
ShopC.
agree, Bonnie. That would be
Okay.
separate. It would be part of their article that they would need to do.
Okay.
To bring it forward.
I would say that is an assumption that both of these will receive a positive, but doesn't know.
And it strikes me that even it's almost independent of the order the articles appear on the warrant. The changes that the select board would make, I think would still dovetail with the changes that we're talking about making. Okay, we're talking about changing different areas of the CPC enabling bylaw. I think it would dovetail without stepping on each other.
So what it would require is you can't change a citizen's petition. And what it would require, if you don't know that you're saying they're going to get rid of ShopC, you have no idea if that will pass town meeting. And then the worst case scenario in the select board, when they get the citizens petition, can maybe do something to add that in or whatever they want to do. But the worst case scenario is you wouldn't have ShopC representative from September until spring town meeting, when you could adjust it again. And seeing as you don't have one now, I don't think there's any real. And we haven't had one since last fall.
I will say, I can't remember which select board member I had the conversation with. They are aware that if ShopC is dissolved, as they're talking about doing, that they would have to make some change to the CPC enabling bylaw. In order to remove the part that says a designee from shop C and presumably to replace them with designee from another body. So they're aware of the issue, and I think they're contemplating addressing it at fall special town meeting, is my understanding.
Is, and does Ellen have,
That's- Sorry. It's fine.
Like I said, I'm 100% behind this, so we're gonna take time to do some of the work. But I don't see the need. I don't understand why you're not doing it. As a committee. Have your own article for town meeting. And I say that because I think the community at this point they must understand representatives on this committee have the knowledge, the history, and the financial obligation to report back to for all of their projects. So that in itself is a statement of need to have these representatives on this committee representing their individual committees.
Mhm.
So I don't know how we ever got to where we got to. I mean, I've had my differences over the years, but not appointing somebody with knowledge of a project or the funding source and who to report to and how to get the information back to the sitting body, I find very upsetting and disturbing. Because we're talking large sums of money, which potentially could be a liability and a debt in the future.
Yeah, you're right. It hurts our ability to understand these projects when, you know, we're missing a subject matter expert on
Right.
the committee. And then also, and this has been said by others and by me, this has a terrible effect on volunteerism just in the town generally. If folks are expecting that if they volunteer, they're going to have to go and be subject to a pretty aggressive interview by the Board of Selectmen. And we have one select board member asking that people don't engage in independent thought, but rather take instructions solely from the select board. I think that's the other piece of this.
I just wanted to respond to your question. When I spoke with Stuart, he agreed a citizen's petition is a valid way to go. And the
That's
committee is doing it because the committee can put it forth, but the selectmen don't have to put it on the warrant. And
No, that's fine.
there's,
I was
and
just
then also,
wondering why.
no one can change the language as an amendment on town meeting floor when it's a citizen's petition. So it would be really the value of having what the CPC members think is the best matching
Right.
the enabling
I just think it'd
legislation.
be more outrageous if they didn't put it on a warrant.
worse is worse. That's how I'm thinking then.
Yeah, both Ellen and Sarah who are joining us remotely. I haven't seen hands up, but if you'd like to join the discussion, by all means, please.
Sure. So I'll just say I am definitely in support of this effort. I think we have multiple reasons why this makes sense to do to bring us in line with what the vast majority of other communities have done. And thank you so much, Lisa, for pulling all of this together. I think when we're talking about, you showed some of those next steps of putting, together documents and FAQs. So much of that information is what you already have here. And I think we have a lot of really strong reasons, as Brett, you said as well, in terms of our quorum. So I think this makes a lot of sense and will hopefully make it easier to recruit and maintain members going forward.
And also, Betsy, do we have anyone joining us from the public?
Yes.
We do. So if there's anyone from the public who's joined us here this evening, who has a question or comment about this matter, please use the raise hand function and we would be happy to promote you up so that you can join us. Any hands going up? No, okay.
Who do we have in the public? That's in dispute.
Marcy Jones.
Yeah.
Mimi.
Yeah.
And Sam Stivers.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us, and if you do wish to contribute at some point, again, please use the Zoom raise hand function. It will vote you right up.
So should we just ask Ben if everybody's in agreement, then we'll craft the actual warrant article if, I'll let you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm just gonna recommend we do this just by a formal vote of support for the idea of CPC preparing a citizens petition warrant article for a fall special town meeting, make the changes that we have discussed to the CPC enabling bylaw, the exact citation of which escapes me right now, but is there a motion to that effect?
I make the motion. I do have just a quick question.
Please.
Logistical. Ben, are you going to be, so for a citizens petition, you have to have a primary sponsor? I don't think you can have a committee. I think it has to be a person. I could be wrong
Yeah,
about
you can
that.
have multiple, the first
But the
person.
first person is the one, or
Correct.
the first two, I think, or
Yeah.
one or two are the ones that will appear. So is it gonna be you or Lisa will be the ones kind of,
I would want to you with the amount of work that you've done, if that's,
Well, I would say for town meeting and some of the questions, Ben, that might come, I think. Ben would be better, we would be better served by you being the lead. I certainly can be number two on this but I think that. There'll probably be questions, maybe Ben, on town meeting floor that I'm not gonna have the historical knowledge on.
okay.
As far as who's gonna present, we can certainly.
Yeah.
Discuss that, how we wanna go about doing that, but I think, if you're okay, or I'm fine, but I just worry that I don't have some of the historical knowledge that you have. But I'm fine with putting me as first, that's fine.
I guess we don't really have to figure it out right now. That's not,
Okay.
I just thought. I'd bring it up.
Somebody
no,
can
it's-
step in for the person.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
Okay, let's
You decide, I'll do it.
let's forbear that for right now, and just focus on committee support for the
Yeah.
citizen petition warrant article. So we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Brett. And I will call the roll. Sarah Warden,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Lisa Braccio,
Yes,
Ben Smith is a yes. It's unanimous. Yes. Okay, so we have support for the warrant article. We have now we have to just discuss the language. And again, Lisa has put together some draft language that looks fantastic.
Can they see that?
it's, if we go back
Yeah.
to sharing the screen, Grant, do you mind,
Yes.
to the proposed changes?
Just like it.
Yes, that's the first one, yep. That would be the first change. And then on this, the slide after that, the only other change would be adding by a majority vote of. So you'd be striking, back one screen, Grant, sorry.
Oh.
So we would be just striking, the committee shall be appointed by the select board and shall consist of the following members. And replacing it with the composition of the committee, the appointment authority, and the term of office for the committee members shall be as follows. That's the first change, and then basically the only thing we're changing on the next page is by adding by a majority vote of. The language in the bylaw stays the same except for the addition of those words. So the committee needs to decide if they're fine with, I guess you could do it two ways then, you could do it as the first slide, go back one, Grant. Is everybody fine with changing the language to the new?
Yeah, that language looks good to me.
Finally, we both, first, the replacement of the language, and then second, the addition of the by majority vote.
Okay, perfect, okay.
On the second slide, I think,
So there's,
for the new language, 0.7, it should be by a majority of the committee. Instead of the commission.
Oh, yeah, number 7.
I didn't actually check all of those, but I thought that one just,
Got it, okay, yep.
that to me, there was a typo number 6, one ember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want one ember, thank you. I'm
Well,
actually-
we're hot.
Yeah.
We are, I'm correcting it now, Grant, that was a great catch, thank you, I'm changing it right now.
and for the for the way that it will appear in the warrant, will it just be essentially the substituted text that will appear, or will we actually just put the new version of text in full for that section?
So Mrs. Spanick, who hasn't much knowledge of this, has done up some level of a draft. It's actually putting the text in with it being struck out.
Okay.
We're just changing the
And in line.
so we're editing. And if you look, granted, what Mrs. Spaniff gave you, go down to under the establishment of terms. After the first second sentence that's struck out, we're actually gonna strike the following sentence because that gives the appointment ability back to the select board again. And then under the final line is gonna read exactly as we have it on the PowerPoint. Does that make sense? So instead of saying the composition of the committee, the term of office for the committee member shall be as follows, we're gonna insert what we have on the PowerPoint there.
I see, yep.
That's, and then the rest is just by adding majority of, and she has committee, and she doesn't have member, so she,
Great, that's helpful, then.
Yes, sir.
At one time, there was some, I don't know if it was true, but it was a requirement that the full language be at the top of every signature page.
Yes.
Is that still true?
You could do an attachment on the back, though. I looked at the form, I actually just had the form up, but
Because then you'd need 120 of these.
you would just,
We could print two sides, right? Have it on the front and not on the back.
you would have this on
Signature.
the back. You can say the form itself, I looked at the form, says if it doesn't fit, you can do an attachment. So the forms themselves have 20 signatures on it.
It all has to be on the same paper.
So,
Same papers, so we can do it on the back,
yeah, we can do it front and back.
front and back.
The front, the proposed article change, back,
It's the
signature.
signatures. Yeah, yep. So we'd still only need 6 sheets roughly, because you want to get extra just in case.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so,
I'd like to give them 100.
so is everybody good with that?
Yep.
We'll get that drafted.
Betsy, all shaking her head. Yep, okay. And so Betsy, if any hands go up, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Can I?
Yeah.
Ask. When you submit, so town clerk won't weigh in on this?
Weigh in on what part of this?
A citizen's petition?
Yeah. Or that it's legitimately a. I'm just
Not
wondering
the
if
town
this,
council,
what?
town council.
the town clerk,
I don't think
Verify
town
signatures, right?
council, town clerk verifies signatures.
Right,
Yes.
I don't think you want, town council weighs in on citizens petitions until after the fact.
They review them after they're submitted for
Right,
town meetings.
too late to submit a new one.
But
So my
it is
question-
before town meeting, the town council does oftentimes provide comment before the town meeting.
Back to the citizen to change it and get more
It's
signatures.
generally, from what I've seen, it's to inform the select board and
Right.
how they would go at that pre-town meeting. I could be wrong about that.
Okay, so. There's no other place to ensure that your citizen's petition is correct except for your expertise.
I don't have expertise. I just
Well-
follow the format of others.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Okay, I was just gonna suggest that you do,
Preemptively talk to town council or something like that.
no,
Can.
just.
Um,
So the form will be the form and then you just go with it. And if for some reason there's any problem,
I don't know that it can be, it's very straightforward, it's
Yeah.
striking one sentence, adding another, and then adding the words by the majority of.
and if there is a problem 6 months from now, we can get back on town meeting with pen
If we
signatures
have to,
if we had to,
if we had to.
which I don't think.
okay. I just was
Yeah.
just wondering if there was any,
I mean, I do think that is the main drawback for doing it this way, is that we don't have that potential for review. But I think given,
I
I could see an argument for either way. Personally, I'd be fine going through the normal process, but I understand why we want to do it this way, and I'm okay with that too.
my concern with that grant is that, like I said before, you know. to me, just the plain reading of the town bylaw clearly states the select board shall appoint these members. And we have a town council who has indicated a willingness to argue against that. So I would be leery of trying to engage him in a review of our warrant article. It's the town council who has said in the past that he's counsel for the select. That's his role. He's the select board's counsel. And I, for that reason, I would be not distrustful, but just a little leery. I feel like this process is that we're talking about me is perhaps a little bit cleaner.
And I think it's better having all the language there. I don't know what town council, I mean, it's so straightforward and what's written here is great.
Yeah.
You know, by inserting the following changes and striking, I mean, that's it. That's it. You're not changing really the intent other than you're striking a sentence.
Well,
So,
I would ask that you read that you strike what you agreed to delete. on
Yeah.
the draft that you have.
Yeah.
From you.
I will. So, just quickly then,
Yeah.
what I can do is, I mean, we've kind of agreed on the language that we agree with. So I will take, what Mrs. Faniff has here and, I'll have Ben, if you would, just forward it out, just so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
What was agreed on here, and I'll make just a couple changes, Grant, that you asked about that we talked about as well. So. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we're sort of running out of time here. So still on the same topic. Once the language is cleared up and we have a form together with the proposed bylaw change on one side and the signature list on the other side. That should probably be forwarded to Freddie and Betsy for circulation to the committee at large. Ready?
Were you gonna have another meeting? Because otherwise, why don't you just, we've got all the language, can't you just vote on it tonight?
We can absolutely vote on it tonight, but I think the cleanest way to then circulate these forms to us to go and get signatures on is to do it as we do all other administrative.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Yeah.
trying to keep it separate,
Nope.
because once you vote on it, you know, it's public and you can all have copies, but yeah,
No, I'm just
Keep
trying to
it
think of the mechanics of.
yes, we'll do that.
Okay,
That
great.
works good.
And then that would be circulated to you. And I should say, if printing becomes a concern, I can handle printing on my my printer at home if need be. I can get double-sided printing done on that. So if that's needed, just let me know. And then with that, is there a motion to approve the language as discussed here for the proposed citizens petition warrant article?
So moved.
And is there a second? Second. Thank you, Grant. And I will call the roll. Sarah Warden,
Yes.
thank you. Ellen Maria,
Yes.
thank you. Grant Farrington? Yes. Brett Peters?
Yes.
Lisa Braccio?
Yes,
And Ben Smith is a yes. Okay. So, the bonding process is sometimes simple and then other times just isn't. And this is one of those times when things have gone not crazy, but for the best of reasons. Brian Valentine has been trying to save the town money on interest and so forth. And we've just come into a situation where we need to get an article on the warrant for fall town meeting to take care of some
So
weirdness that has emerged.
I have an update for that.
Yeah.
And so you're moving on, but did you have anything else on the bond, like creating language to pass out with the information that was on your slide, Lisa?
for the facts. I mean,
Yeah.
creating a fact sheet, I think that's something,
That wasn't before or with getting signatures?
We'll have another meeting for special town meeting, right? Because
Well, we have one on the 11th, but I
Yeah.
think we could even, if everyone's amenable, just schedule a quick. Zoom meeting. It doesn't even have to be in person if we don't want to.
Yeah.
To,
think,
or if
Freddie-
somebody wants to take a stab at a fact sheet.
yeah, I think what Freddie's talking about is if, we are, for instance, wandering around transfer station, do we have something to hand out to people? This is what we're talking about.
You don't think it's needed, let me be clear, you don't think it's needed while you're collecting signatures? That was my question.
So I don't, and I'll tell you why. So I'm just gonna go to 20 people that I know and have them sign it. So, but I think we should at some point before town meeting, talk about working as a group to, doing something at the transfer station and having a fact sheet to hand out. But I don't know necessarily that we need it. If everybody can get 20 signatures of voters, then
Yeah.
I don't see us standing at the transfer station for hours, but I think we need to do some outreach like that.
Yeah.
I just don't know that we need it prior to getting signatures. I'm just curious, and that's just my 2 cents.
If we need to get signatures in the near term too.
Yes,
I know that we don't have an infinite amount of time here to get this all together.
correct.
So time may just simply preclude us getting a fact sheet together before we get signatures. Okay,
So, all right, sorry,
Yep.
I went back, but I just remember that being on your
Yep.
slide, I
Yep.
wasn't sure. So, going to the townhouse bond, which was sort of one of the first reasons for this meeting when we weren't having one, is I got an email from Brian Valentine that there's a 23,500 payment due on a temporary bond, which I had been unaware was out there, and I thought he told me it was due in October. I just got an email today that said it's due in June. It's due in June, so I couldn't reach him today because he wasn't working in the office. If it's due in June, it can be handled best with your annual bond payments. It's just because we meet before the fiscal year and the due date, so that works. If it's due in October, you want to do it in September's town meeting because to clarify that. And then I was also, so the question is, if it's due in October, but it said June, so I don't know why I thought he told me October. It could have just been like I misunderstood, right? So if it's due for special town meeting and we need to have it, that could be part of that 1 hour Zoom meeting. Just I'll draft up the warrant article and you could vote on it at that time if it's needed.
sorry, can you explain the reason for why the additional payment or?
Yeah, I can,
Yeah.
not well.
Okay.
So I started going down the rabbit hole of what's been bonded and looking at the bond payments and, bonding is a complicated situation because what happens is Brian packages a lot of bonds together to get the best rate, and it can take years sometimes before he actually issues the bond. In the meantime, he issues if we're paying bills, he issues a temporary bond that gets money that can then pay the bill. Those temporary bonds have short-term interest. Then when he packages the whole bond, he takes what's left in it and rolls it into a new bond. We got a 20-year bond schedule, and I thought it was the bond. But I think maybe trying to save money that we wouldn't be needing in the next year or so when he issued that bond, he held back money that he then became necessary to use because we used up all the long-term bond money, and he got another temporary bond. I'm going to, but Carla's on vacation, and I suggested to Ben that Ben, Lisa, and I sit down with Carla and Brian to go through all of it. But that's the long story of why there's another bond. But I don't think any of us expected there to be a temporary bond issued after the large bond was put out. So I don't have the exact answer, but I hope that clarifies it a little bit.
Yeah, thanks.
And then I have also put an update on the bond. So I reached out, on the project. So I reached out to John Parent. He sent a nice note to Ben, but he stated he anticipates the renovation project in its entirety, the construction phase, will be completed sometime in the next few weeks. And that he shouldn't need to ask for any contingency money for the construction component. He is currently working with town's legal counsel to secure information and documentation that will be needed for the issuance of a preservation restriction. And there may be a need to use some project contingency funds for this purpose. That's not a certainty. I will get a full rundown before your next meeting or before we talk about the bond, but as part of this, reaching out to to Carla and Brian, I'm going to work with Betsy and go do a full analysis of, what the funds are, what's left in the bid documents, and where we stand with what's left in the bond. Not the bond, what's left in the project account money and how much is left between that before you hit the contingency. So, and then you also have signage. That's a cost. So for that reason, and also for the PR reason, I'm going on to the next topic. So when you get to the next topic, but I will get a full rundown of the financial situation for the committee before the next meeting. And then that would be wrapping that project up. And is the next one closing out projects?
Just because time is sort of running out on us here. If everyone's okay with it, I just want to jump really quickly to minutes and just get those taken care of. I think folks have had a chance to review them and have gotten their typos and edits and so forth to Betsy. Any substantive changes from anybody? That being the case, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes as currently written? So moved. Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I will call the roll. Sarah Warden,
Can I abstain from it because I wasn't in it?
oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen Meyer,
Yes.
Brent Farrington,
Yes.
Brett Peters, yes. Lisa Braccio?
Yes.
Ben Smith is a yes. Okay, back to the next item of the agenda, closing out projects, updates and project liaisons. So I'm gonna turn this over to Brett.
So, I've been working on that, hoping to be closing out some of the projects starting in September. And because we had the opportunity for this meeting, there's something the CPC used to do, which was have a project liaison with every project. And it kind of makes sense to do that where these projects were closing up. And so I picked a couple of ones that I think would be beneficial to have a liaison now. Because we're meeting and I'll make my recommendation and explain. So we have the townhouse, the preservation restriction. To follow that through, it's not just, I think the CPC expected to see the PR and to, make sure it protects the values that you expected it to. And then to make sure it gets, followed through, that it's being moving forward. There's also a preservation restriction due on the library. And my understanding is the library's preservation restriction is the model that John Parent is using to do the townhouse. So in my mind, and I wouldn't say that this liaison is to deal with the finances that Betsy and I are going through. For your next meeting, we'll present that and then the liaison can have it and also have a copy of the application. But in my mind, it makes sense if you agree, but it makes sense if somebody's studying the preservation restriction, just have the same person do both. And because I don't think it's a big lift it's like not the whole project, it's just the PR is what I'm recommending. And then I want to go to the next ones. There's also two other projects that, of course, you have to go through the application to make sure everything was done. But my knowledge is that they are complete except for signage. So those two, there's the All Wars, just the All Wars Memorial up at the Common, the town common, and there's also the
Golf course.
no, right here, the
memorial.
fire,
Memorial.
the memorial. Both of those need signage, so those two together seem to be kind of similar. You've got the fire and police department, or you could do them separate, and you've got the veterans, I believe. Bonnie, I believe was your husband actually who took the lead on that, on a very nice project, which is complete, but lacking the signage. And we can go over the, after whoever's doing it, I can go over the minutes or the discussions we had on signage in the past. And then the other area is there's 4 projects for the golf course out there. 2 are ready to be closed out, and 2 are in process. Of the 2 in process, they're being worked on with the Open Space Commission, the Golf Course Audubon International program, and the invasive species. We're finishing up that hopefully maybe this year. I don't know if you remember, there was a solid wall of knotweed along the perimeter, and now that's mostly done, but there's a little bit more. So that's a little bit ongoing. And then the Audubon International, as you know, is part of the requirement for the irrigation. So those are ongoing with open space. And the other 2 that are to be closed out is there's a conservation restriction endowment and the golf course restoration when we had to change the holes around, and there was some building the parking lot originally. So all of those require signage, and I think having one person do it, because you don't necessarily want 4 signs, you're working with the golf course committee, how are we going to make this all happen? But so we can close out the 2 projects with the signage there. And I'd like to recommend that your Open Space Preservation Commission representative, Sarah, be the liaison for that, because she'll be working with the Open Space Commission on the other projects. So that would be 1 liaison for those projects. It's only the closing out of 2 because 2 are ongoing, but the point is that we're working with the golf course committee and the golf course management company on that.
Sarah, you feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you.
And then, so the other one is someone to do 1 or 2 people to do the PRs. I'm recommending 1 person, and then 1 or 2 people to do the memorials that need signage. And the point is, in the September, there will be many others that need a liaison to wrap up, and so that there'll be more than enough projects for people to participate on.
So I'll just say, being from historical, I have an interest in the preservation restriction. I guess I'm ashamed to say that I really don't know like what's the status of them are. Like, so does the PR exist, but it hasn't been finalized, or does it literally need to be written from scratch, or what would the liaison be? What needs to be done with it?
May I?
Please.
The way it was set up, and then this committee can decide if that's how you do it in the future, is that the individual entity was required to get the PR. Because they know the project, they know the building, they know their needs. And so the liaison on that would just be making sure that the project's moving forward. There hasn't been a lot of regular updates on what's happening with those, so it would make it, you would be communicating with the library, Ryan, or whoever they've designated, and with John Parent for the and you would not be writing the PR or approving anything really, unless you saw something that was disturbing or concerning to bring back to the committee. But it wasn't, I don't believe it was the committee was, it needs to protect the values, and who would know better than you, right? On historical, the values of the historic resource that the citizens of Southborough paid a lot of money to restore.
So would you recommend 1 or 2 people working together for the townhouse and the library together, if they seem kind of hand in hand?
I would suggest 1, or if it seems like a lot, then you could come back and say, I need a second person, but it's not like you're
You're not right.
You're not doing the work.
Yeah,
you're just-
right.
Yeah, you're not
checking.
writing it or
getting a
reviewing
status
it or
update.
just
Exactly.
saying, hey, what's going on?
Okay,
And
yeah, because.
I'd like to see the draft.
Having read the PR for 84 Main Street, you
Yeah,
know, with 100 pages, with extensive documentation and all that, I just wasn't sure
I
exactly
believe
what.
the library one has been drafted, if not formalized, is my understanding, right? They've
I
made some
haven't
progress. I believe they've made some progress on it, in the townhouse project is, they're taking the tack of, you know, we're gonna follow the library's lead, however they do it, we're gonna follow along, including with the organization that will accept the PR, I think they're gonna.
And I think that was a big part of it,
Yeah.
finding someone who would accept it, that didn't cost a lot of money.
Sometimes Grant, somebody just showing up to the meetings, asking to be on the agenda and wanting a status. Might move it along
Yes.
to fruition as well.
Yeah, so I'm happy to take that on,
And if
if
you,
anybody else. doesn't
if
want
you
it.
think it's too much, then you can, you know. And I think it's gonna be like the library, then the town, but I just think that would be good. That's my recommendation.
So can I just ask on the signage for the memorial here and the all wars, I mean, I don't think anybody envisions, is there like a standard sign? I don't think anybody envisions a big monster sign being there to, you know,
For the All Wars Memorial, it was going to be an engravement in one of the stone, we can find the language of what was agreed on. It was not supposed to be,
a sign.
it could, I mean, it could be because the engravement didn't happen and that created a problem because it was supposed to happen when all the other engraving happened. That would be for you to discuss with the project applicant and the owner of the, you know, to make it, goal always is to be tasteful.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do both, the memorial and the all wars.
Thank you.
I have the paperwork that Andrew had provided me. In the folder, in the application, all of that.
I can have a conversation with Bonnie.
I'll just sit it together.
Are you,
I'd be happy to. If everybody's okay, so no one else wants to do them.
and then I think the one out here could be larger. But not
Yeah.
a huge sign,
That's how you,
always tasteful, but.
No.
I don't, does anyone see what other towns do? I mean, depending on the location,
It depends on the project, I mean, for
depends
these,
on the project.
even a small brass plaque. I
Yeah.
think, you know, could be tasteful and wouldn't draw attention away from Memorial in any way, but would, you know, let the town know that their CPA funds have provided for this.
So Freddie, on the memorial, was that asked for by the fire department? The fire chief, do you know when the application came in, so I know where to go?
we'll get that to
Okay,
you.
that's fine.
Oh, Neil Pease,
That's what I was saying.
Ran
It's
with it?
Probably Neil, but he's gone, but I can talk to the chief, it's fine. No problem, I'd be happy to do those.
so have we taken care of those three?
I think we have.
Great, and that also means that you're moving forward on closing out projects.
Yep.
Because, you know, signage was the main reason for a lot of the projects that are just with the closing out projects, some projects are ongoing.
Yeah.
And other ones are waiting for signage for the most part. So,
All right, chair report. Freddie, you and I had a conversation, there's, you know. No, I don't think there is anything on a chair report. So next meeting dates, at this point, our next scheduled meeting is September 11th. It sounds like we will probably, be putting together perhaps a Zoom meeting maybe in August, something
Yeah.
like that. At least for the citizens petition
Yeah.
warrant article. And then also if we learned some new information from town treasurer and accountant, we might have to address that at that time too. But we'll have to organize that, you know, via email and text as we get closer.
Can I ask Ellen just a quick question? Ellen, you are like the fact sheet queen. Would you be willing to take a stab at, you know, a fact sheet? I'll send you the PowerPoint. you know, you have some, take some of the information off there. You just put things together so much better than the rest of us.
Right.
So would you be willing to take a stab at just doing something quick and brief and,
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
all right, we'll forward that to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
She is the guru.
Okay, and you know, I have 8 o'clock exactly, and I think we have gotten through the agenda. And still no raised hands, okay,
All right.
fantastic. So there is one last motion to make. Would somebody like to make it?
Grant.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
A second.
Correct. Okay, I will call the roll. Sarah Warden,
Sorry, yes.
thank you. Ellen Murray,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Lisa Braccio.
Yes.
Ben Smith is yes. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Welcome again, Sarah.
Yeah.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Thanks, and thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, then, so
Thank you. Good night.
We need some-
no, I have comments. That's fine.